Hello, my name is Jeff Scott. I am a composer, French hornist, and it's my new work that you'll be hearing shortly. The new work is entitled Amantes. Now, Amantes is a Portuguese word which translates to lovers. Now, I decided to write music about something we all can relate to: love. Love in all of its many virtues. And while it would be impossible to compose music to cover all the different virtues and facets of love, I chose three. And this is what really you should be listening for in this piece. I chose flirtatious love. I chose sentimental love. And I chose quirky love. Quirky is that kind of love, when you say, well, you gotta love them, don't you? One of those loves where you just, you gotta love the person in spite of it all. Flirtatious love is really pretty obvious, but I take it from sort of a coyous side of things, very coy. And sentimental love really talks the full spectrum I try to cover of sentiment. The strong sentiment, the passion, and sometimes could be anger. This is what you should listen for as the different instruments take on different roles within this lover's quarrel, entitled Amantes. I call the music I compose urban classical music. I get that from really my upbringing. I grew up in New York City, in the boroughs, mostly in Queens and Brooklyn, but went to school and worked all in New York and Manhattan, Staten Island, and so forth. And as a young person growing up in the boroughs of New York, it is impossible, unless you don't leave the house, to not be influenced by all the many cultures that are around you. I like to say when you grow up in New York, you grow up a little bit black, a little bit white, a little bit Jewish, a little bit Hispanic, a little bit Haitian, a little bit of everything. You can't help it. It's a huge melting pot. And I grew up with friends who I would go to their parties and experience a different culture just about every time I went to a different friend's home. This all influenced me not only in my composing but in my career choices. I wanted to be part of a career that would allow me to express in all those different emotions and experiences that I had within me from that upbringing. And it comes through in my music. I definitely went to conservatory and studied the traditional European pedagogy, but my music is informed and truly guided, really, by my urban upbringing and my urban experience. So this you will hear in my music. My creative process. I simply cannot compose in a vacuum. I can't compose without something that informs or directs me or inspires me. It could be a story, it could be a photo, it could be a memory, it could be a person. But I need something to inspire me, to inform me, to start from something. Once I have that material to begin with, I like to say I compose pretty much like someone would write a book or do a screenplay. I write what I call a storyboard. And on that storyboard, which could be very detailed or it could be pretty simple, but it has certain points in the music where I want to have certain emotions expressed, or I want the audience to feel a certain thing at this point. Um, and so I make sure that while I'm telling this story, that I'm hitting all those very important points along the way. And it can change, of course, it can change, but I need to have that and that source material to really feel like I'm writing something that has cohesion, that has meaning, that has thought, comes from something. Um, and that's my process. And it's been my process for decades now. I started composing in a very earnest way when I was a member of Imani Winds. Imani Winds is a full time touring and recording wind quintet that started in 1997 in New York City. And if you know anything about the repertoire for wind quintet, you know that it's not very in depth. The main composers, um, that we would call household names, let's say, really didn't write for wind quintet. So we don't have a Brahms wind quintet, or a Beethoven wind quintet, or a Stravinsky, or a Bach. We don't have any of those pieces. There are transcriptions, let's say, but there's nothing really written by these major European composers. And most of our repertoire started at the 20th century. And there's some good repertoire there, but not enough to really sustain a career as a touring wind quintet. And so, as a member of the quintet, and knowing we were going to need repertoire to sustain ourselves on the road and to leave a legacy, we took it upon ourselves to commission, and I took it upon myself to compose and arrange, as well as the founding flautist Valerie Coleman. We both really sort of engineered the repertoire, the career of the ensemble by constantly bringing new music um, for the genre. Uh, I hadn't composed really in earnest until I got into the ensemble, and it was specifically the ensemble itself that really was my composition professor. Uh, I had never formally studied composition as a degree. I took orchestration classes. I definitely, had my fill with doing arranging and so forth for other types of ensembles, but concentrated composition where the ensemble is relying on this repertoire I'd never done until I joined Imani Winds. And it was that group that really sort of helped me and guided me in my path to composition. It was the best lab band one could have. I had the best musicians on the planet, and I could bring in uh, 20 bars of music and have it played back to me and play around with it right there in a rehearsal setting. And then I could get the feedback from these great musicians. And I always said that if Imani Winds can't make your music sound good, it's likely not very good music. And so Imani Winds was a huge influence on my composition. Um, Not only for that, but because of the exposure. We're playing all the main stages in the United States and abroad, many places in China and all over Europe, um, New Zealand. And so I was able to create a career by in composition by having this music showcased all over the world by these amazing musicians. So I owe them a lot. I hope they don't put a price tag on that because I probably couldn't afford it. But yeah, Imani Winds, huge, huge influence. Really everything when it comes to composition.